Interstate 15 between Barstow and Las Vegas. 60 miles of nothing but creosote and heat shimmer. Then a green exit sign. 5 letters. Z, Z, Y, Z, X. No apostrophe. No explanation. No town visible from the road. Drivers slow down. Some pull over to photograph it. Most assume the sign shop made a mistake and Caltrans never got around to fixing it. That's the reasonable guess. It's also wrong. And the reason it's wrong involves a radio preacher, a mineral spring, and a piece of federal land that was never his. By the end of this, you'll know exactly why that sign says Zzyzx. You'll know who chose those 5 letters, what year, and the very specific reason he picked them. You'll know how a name somebody invented out of thin air ended up printed on a federal map and bolted to a state highway. And you'll know the part that actually makes this a case file and not just a trivia answer, which is what happened to the man who named it. That comes last. Start with the letters. The folk explanation is a good one, and I understand why it sticks. People assume Zzyzx is Native American. Something Mojave or Mojave, transliterated badly by a surveyor who didn't speak the language. That happens constantly with desert place names. The other common guess is a clerical error, some data entry glitch in a mapping database that got copied forward until it was too embarrassing to correct. Both explanations assume the same thing, that nobody would choose this on purpose. That's the assumption the record breaks. Start with the place, not the name. The site is a natural spring at the base of the Soda Mountains on the edge of Soda Dry Lake. Water in the Mojave is rare enough to draw everybody. Prospectors used it. The Army used it in the 19th century at a post generally recorded as Camp Soda Springs. Before that, indigenous people in the region used the spring for a very long time, so the location was known and named long before 1944. It was called Soda Springs. Which raises the obvious question, why rename it at all? The answer is a man named Curtis Howe Springer. Born in the 1890s, a radio evangelist and health promoter who broadcast to a large audience and had a talent for turning attention into arrivals. In 1944, he came to Soda Springs. He filed mining claims on the land. Then he built a hotel, a cross-shaped pool, paths, buildings, a small airstrip. He renamed the place Zzyzx, not Springerville, not Soda Springs Health Resort, Zzyzx. 5 letters that don't spell anything in any language. Which is exactly the point, and the reason is not subtle. Springer said, in accounts he gave repeatedly over the years, that he wanted the last word in the English language, not the longest, not the prettiest, the last alphabetically. Look at a dictionary. Look at an index. Look at a gazetteer of place names. If you want to be at the bottom of every list ever compiled, Z is not enough. Zoo is not enough. You need consecutive Zs at the front, and then you need to keep going, because someone could always out-Z you. So he stacked them. Zzyzx, 2 Zs, then Y, then Z, then X. Test it yourself, because that's how you know a claim holds. Sort any list of English words. Anything starting Z's already beats everything from A through Zy. Now sort within the Zs. The 3rd letter decides it. Y beats every vowel and most consonants. Z sits near the end of the end. Springer didn't stumble into that. He engineered it. And there's a second engineering choice hiding in it, which is that Zzyzx is pronounceable. Zzyzx, a name you can say on the radio and a listener can remember. So he had a name and a site. He also had a broadcast. Springer promoted the resort on the radio for decades, and visitors came out to the Mojave for the mineral baths and the desert air. He mailed products. He built a mailing list. And here is where the case file gets a second thread, because the whole operation sat on mining claims. Mining claims on federal land are for mining, not for hotels, not for a health resort. That mismatch is the pin that eventually pulled the whole board apart, but it took a long time. The federal government moved in 1974. The Bureau of Land Management removed Springer from the site. Reporting from the time and since describes the government's position as squatting on public land, with the mining claims not supporting what had actually been built there. Springer also faced charges connected to the claims made for the products he sold. Accounts of the exact charges and outcomes vary in the details, so treat the specifics carefully. What is not disputed is the result. He left. The buildings stayed, and the name stayed too. That's the strange part. Remove the man and you'd expect the name to go with him. Invented names attached to private ventures usually die when the venture does. This one didn't. In 1984, the U.S. Board on Geographic Names approved Zzyzx as the official name of the place. That is the federal body that decides what the government's own maps say. Whatever internal process led to that decision, the sources I can stand behind don't spell out. What they do record is the outcome. Zzyzx became official 10 years after its inventor was removed. The site itself got a second life. The land is inside what is now the Mojave National Preserve, and the old resort buildings became the Desert Studies Center, run in connection with the California State University system. Researchers and students work there. The cross-shaped pool is still on the ground, and out on Interstate 15, the road that runs to it is signed Zzyzx Road, because a road that leads to an officially named place gets named after that place. That's the whole mechanism, and it's worth saying slowly. Here it is. A place name does not have to be old or meaningful, or in any language. It has to be in use. Springer used Zzyzx on the radio, in mail, on signs, for 30 years. Maps started carrying it. Once a name is what everybody actually calls a location, the official process is largely catching up to reality rather than deciding it. So the strangest place name in America got approved for the same reason ordinary place names get approved. Somebody used it long enough that it became the truth on the ground. Which means the sign isn't an error at all. It's a record of who was talking loudest, longest, about a spring in the Mojave. The Army called it Soda Springs and left. Springer called it Zzyzx and stayed 30 years with a microphone. The name that survives is the one that got repeated. And that's the part people find unsettling, because we assume official names come from authority downward, when a lot of them come from habit upward. Now, why does this feel like a glitch when you drive past it? Because of what you can't see from the freeway. You see 5 nonsense letters and no town. You don't see 1944, the radio broadcasts, the mining claims, the eviction, the 1984 approval. You're reading the last line of a 40-year document. Every place name works this way. You just don't notice with the normal-sounding ones. If this is the kind of case file you want more of, subscribing is the whole reason I get to keep pulling them. There's one more thread to pin, and it's the honest one. What the record does not settle. Springer's own explanation of the name is well repeated, but the precise wording of what he said varies from telling to telling, so I won't put quote marks around any version of it. Accounts of his legal troubles differ on the specific charges and the length of any sentence, and I'd rather leave that as a range than pick a number to make the beat land. Visitor counts at the resort come down largely to his own promotion, so treat them as claims, not measurements. One more thing the record is genuinely quiet on: whether the 1984 approval involved any discussion of the spelling itself, or whether the 5 ZYX letters simply passed through as the name already in use, I have not found a source that says. It's a small gap, but it's the kind of gap this channel is about. Somewhere in a file somebody signed off on Zzyzx. What they thought about it while doing so isn't in anything I can cite. So the exit sign stands. Not a typo. Not a language nobody bothered to check. A deliberate piece of alphabetical engineering by a man who wanted to be last on every list, and who is on the maps still winning. The letters outlasted the claims, the hotel, the broadcasts, and the eviction. That's the useful lesson here. And it isn't about luck. Systems record what gets repeated, not what's correct. If you want something to stick, use it relentlessly and let the paperwork catch up. Murphy's Law gets quoted as a complaint about fate. It wasn't. It was a warning about systems that allow mistakes to pass through unchallenged, whether that's a sensor mounted backwards or a name nobody questioned. Zzyzx is the harmless version. Next file is the other kind, where a form field accepted something it shouldn't have and the consequence was not a road sign. Board's already up. I'll see you there.